Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever it is in the world that you're coming to us from. My name's Tom, otherwise known as Striking, here in the digital media world, and I'm so glad to be hosting episode 23 of Auditchain's On the Brink podcast. It's been a while since we've been here to answer questions and to provide a project status update, so I'm not going to beleaguer the introduction and draw it out any longer than I have to. Let's get right to the interview with Jason. Well, Jason, it's been a long time since we've spoken and brought an update to the viewers and community members of Auditchain. What's been going on in this time?
So a lot's been going on, actually, behind the scenes. We're just about done with version 1 of Luca. Luca is a composition suite. It also allows you to submit financial reports for analysis. So you remember in the beginning of the year, everyone had to go to the SEC, look for the company, launch the filing, grab the URL, and then go to our site and submit the URL. And then that's all gone now. So we've integrated Luca into the SEC's Edgar database. So now when you want to analyze a financial report, you just type in the name of the company or the symbol and it appears. And then the number of the available reports will appear. You can choose one or more or all of them and literally submit them for analysis right without moving. Right? It's really, really, really simple.
So you got API access to aid that along for everybody.
Correct. But it wasn't easy. It was not easy.
Well, it'll certainly help with adoption.
Yeah, well, there are rules that the SEC has that made an API difficult. There is a maximum number of calls you can make. And we had to program the system to limit the number of maximum calls to just below the maximum number of calls allowed by the SEC and then queue the rest, right?
Makes sense.
So that's one aspect. Number two, when you do submit an analysis, you can take the result and import it into Luca if you're the company, right?
Right.
Or if you're anybody, but you can't do anything with it unless you're the company, right?
Right.
So it allows you to look at all of the inconsistencies in edit mode, right? So it takes structured data from the SEC, converts it into our logical model. It detects all of the inconsistencies and allows you to edit them and correct them, right? And this is going to be useful when we launch, because that analysis platform, which we will resume a bounty for, is going to start a clock. The clock it's going to start is no company wants to show up on that map, especially as a red dot, right? If it's green, then that's fine. But if you show up as a red dot, you're going to click through it if you're the CFO or controller, right? Or if you're the CEO or whoever you are. And you'll be able to import it into Luca, but you're not going to be able to do anything with it until you pay us for a subscription to use Luca to create a holistic remediation of all of your financial reports in the past and on a going forward basis. So it is a, how should I say this? It's a market dynamic based incentive, because what you don't want to have happen as a CFO, controller, CEO, or anybody who signs those financial statements is for a mob of people to gang up on the short side, right? So, for example, if you are lying, then you're not going to really be able to manipulate your way out of it. But if you took some shortcuts and for the most part, you're relatively honest, and we have to assume 90% of the companies or more out there are relatively honest, trying to do the right thing. It's just the regulatory specifications are not up to snuff, right? Therefore, the software they use is also not up to snuff because they are only built to meet regulatory specifications, which are not up to snuff. So we go way beyond regulatory specifications, right? So that's sort of a quick, well-rounded view of some of the things that we've been up to. The other thing is the SEC and legislature is moving in our direction, right? So last year, the Financial Data Transparency Act was passed at this time.
Right, about a year ago.
Yeah, as a result, now that puts 7 regulatory agencies in the United States, as well as 90,000 municipalities who issue municipal bonds within its scope, right? But what else it did is on September 7th of this year, the SEC warned all public companies to raise the consistency of their financial statements, and they provided a sample letter that they're going to send out to each company that has inconsistencies in their financial statements. So that set up another clock at work, right? So January 1 of 25 is when all the Financial Data Transparency Act kicks in, right? So we are 2 years ahead of any of the other vendors in terms of being able to detect the inconsistencies, remediate them, and refile, or call the lawyers and ask them what their advice. Nobody wants to restate, right? But if you can get in front of it and do it in such a way that complies with the law and you're getting in front of it, they'll do that, but not without a subscription to Luca, right? So that's going to make our bounty program a lot easier. So for those that are not technically inclined or who don't want to install a Pacioli node and use Docker, and that's going to go a long way, because all you're going to do is go to Luca, which is hosted. You won't have to host anything, and you'll submit all these reports. Now, we're not going to pay you to fish. We're going to pay you to catch fish. So you only get paid if a financial report contains inconsistencies, but they will all be written and indexed in the database, so to speak, and they will all appear on the map. Now, we're not going to use Google Maps because Google Maps is not censorship resistant, right? There's a new map getting built that will be hosted in another way that prevents censorship.
Right.
So there's been a lot of development work behind the scenes. We don't talk about it right now because it doesn't affect, all everybody cares about is number go up, right? And as everybody knows, I don't like to talk about that.
Well, number go up is a problem that will fix itself when you get a launch customer and get going with the product.
Correct.
When do you see that happening?
So we're chewing on large customers now, right? There is a regulator that we're working on, but that's a long sales cycle.
Right.
There's an RFP that has not been transmitted by them yet, which is being worked on. It is thought that they are an uneducated buyer, so they are being educated as to the capabilities. That RFP will likely not be transmitted until March or April. There will be a period of time to allow for response to those RFPs. It is believed that nobody out there now is capable of meeting the requirements in that RFP. The deadline for submissions to that RFP might be third quarter of next year, and they may not award the contract, for another year from now, let's say.
Right? So as they say in government, it's a long sales cycle.
It is. So, but there are a lot of other business development opportunities that we're working on now that are a lot shorter in sales cycle times, right? But again, we're selling complex machinery to companies that require sound controls, right? And there's all sorts of standards that surround that. So
Well,
it's not something that you can't close somebody in a single phone call.
Right.
You can't close somebody in a single phone call, right?
Well, that's good. And speaking of standards, you've been posting a lot on LinkedIn about attaining certification to a standard. I'm probably not saying that correctly. Could you talk to us about the Auditchain Protocol and becoming a standard?
Yeah, so it's not the protocol itself, it's actually Luca. So Luca has been the basis of the development of a written specification that was finally submitted on November 6th to the Object Management Group, who is a global technical standard setter. They're the ones that brought you part of the semantic web, like OWL and RDF and Shackle, right? For those who are structured data experts. Along with many, many, many different other, they cross every domain, right? Their membership consists of governments, regulators, consortia, and private enterprise, right? And they have a lot of members. They've been around since the 80s. So that specification gets put to a final vote in June, right? And the backstory on that specification is that we started it 3 years ago almost. It died a year and a half ago, and then it was revived with a vengeance about 6 months ago because of the impact that the Financial Data Transparency Act has on the need for, and this is what it specifies. It specifies a bidirectional, data structure agnostic interchange using structured data agnostic logical constraints. And in our case, we add specificity because the structured data is the structured logic that we use to constrain logic and data within the Luca suite application is XBRL-based. So when you import an XBRL structured disclosure instance, it interprets the instance, converts it into our logical constraints, which allows you to output it in XBRL, IXBRL, RDF, Shackle, OWL, Sparkle, any other data standard without the loss of integrity or control, right? So Luca has been the basis of that standard. That specification has some contributors, not just us, but the EDM Council was a major contributor. The EDM Council is a consortia that gave you the Financial Industry Business Ontology, which is a standard, right? They've got 380 of the world's largest corporations as members. So SBRM, Standard Business Report Model, which is the name of the specification, has support and contributions from a variety of larger interests that believe it will be central for data interchange under the new Financial Data Transparency Act as we move forward. It also has use cases in, for instance, the EDM Council has DCAM, which is data cleansing, a data hygiene protocol, right?
Right.
So when you have bidirectionality and structure agnostic, that serves the DCAM protocol, which is part of the whole EDM Council's push, right? So there's been a lot happening behind the scenes, right? We're not sitting here twiddling our thumbs, and it's not a rug, as some comments
well,
in the
just to finish up the data standard thing, sometimes those things can take forever, but because there's a push for the people to start reporting and to comply by January 1st, 2025, they need to get this thing going, right? They need to come to they need to come to a decision quickly.
That's right. We are the first actual implementation of the Standard Business Report Model written specification, right? So what we do will become a standard in June. I think I should probably announce two other things. So, in the process of this standard adoption, we recruited two individuals. One is David Bleskowski, who used to, he was hired by the SEC to oversee the implementation of the original XBRL specification in 2008, right? He's an ex-regulator, ex-Accenture, PwC. He's head of strategic policy for us now. And then there is Pete Rivet, who is largely responsible for the financial industry business ontology at the EDM Council. And he's the one who actually wrote the standard business report model specification that was submitted on November 6th. Of course, with our major contributions.
Right.
So Pete is now our lead ontologist. And for those who are listening that don't know what an ontology is, an ontology is an arrangement of things related to a domain in the data world, structured data world, right? So, for instance, the contribution made by the EDM Council was for non-financial reporting data, which was pharmaceutical focused, such as all of the terms used for packaging pharmaceuticals, all of the terms used for making pharmaceuticals, all of the terms used for all of the raw materials associated with all the ingredients in a drug. Things like this. These are ontological in nature, they're relational in nature, and standard business report model serves that use case as well. So the contribution came from the EDM Council, which was pharmaceutical focused. But it all involves bidirectionality of structure agnostic data interchange. What does that have to do with blockchain, you ask? It has
Jason,
nothing
what
to
does
do
that
with
have to do with blockchain?
In our case, it has a lot to do with blockchain because that supports the process controls and that module that we developed. So inside of Luca, which is where you will create all of your controls, right, will be the ability to take those controls and share them with the marketplace once they've been proven to work correctly, right? For instance, a roll-up pattern or a roll-forward pattern is a pattern used in every financial report, but there are subtle nuances that are different for each company, right? So process control NFTs will be created inside the Luca suite, right? So now the entry to the Auditchain protocol will occur from the Luca suite. The Pacioli external validating node will be a packaged, Dockerized, containerized software operating on the decentralized network. So there were a lot of architectural adjustments that we spent a lot of time and energy making in the last year. But now I think we're there.
Well, it's been as you've said here on this show before. If you knew it was going to take this long when you started, you don't know if you would have
done something. I would have done something else. Seriously,
would have trained to be a professional baseball player. It probably would have been just as easy. But there's two sides to this. There's the accounting software, and then there's the validating side that supports the token. And with the closure of an exchange and the token on DeFi itself on QuickSwap, what's going on with the AUD token, and what's the future for that?
So we have been, and it's been very, very difficult to raise capital in the environment in the last year, right?
Right.
The sentiment is changing now because the markets are picking up, but it's been hell. I mean, it's just been utter hell, right? So it's coming in dribs and drabs, but there's going to be a point where it all comes in. The rest of it comes in all at once, right? The question of exchanges centralized exchanges. Their ability to continue as going concerns has a lot to do with these Bitcoin ETFs, which I won't get into, right?
Right.
But if they shrink the supply of Bitcoin, a lot of those exchanges rely on Bitcoin-related trading revenue. And if there's less of a supply of Bitcoin because of those ETFs, then it raises some doubt about those centralized exchanges. So DeFi is going to be the way to go forward for our token, which is now on QuickSwap, and we're preparing a Uniswap pair. But until we raise capital, there's no liquidity in those pairs. Right. So once we launch the protocol, there will be organic supply of liquidity provided by others who, outside of the protocol, want to earn the 30 beeps or 25 beeps or whatever it is for providing liquidity pairs. But to spend money on centralized exchanges is a precarious thing to contemplate in light of how crypto seems to be getting re-centralized by the TradFi world, right? Because you, who protested on January 3rd, 2009, are lobbying for adoption of the thing that you protested with to the very system that you protested. So I don't want to get started.
Jason is referencing the Bitcoin crowd pumping the government to approve the ETFs when it centralizes control over Bitcoin, when they developed something that essentially brought the control of money, control of value outside of the government. And they want to give it back to them and to the big banks.
Look, you created a financial instrument that was supposed to exist outside of the traditional financial system. Then you lobbied the same system for institutional adoption, and you lobbied for sensible regulation of crypto. So you got to imagine that you've created a Trojan horse. But that's, again, I don't want to talk about that. That's something for another time. But the point is that DeFi and decentralized exchanges is probably going to be the bulk of the volume for that token going forward.
And with the launch of the project and customers actually using it, that will provide the organic liquidity because they have to buy the token, so the money goes into it, and that hopefully will happen soon. The community asks us all the time about it, and it's hard. I understand it's hard to answer those questions when you have to focus on raising money in the first place and developing the product. And so just for them to know that, hey, it's coming. It is, and it's not going away. Is pretty much a good thing.
So our goal, there are 3 phases to the protocol: awareness, adoption, and transformation, right? Transformation happens after a significant amount of adoption occurs. Adoption is provoked by awareness. So awareness starts with that analysis protocol, which makes it very easy for anyone who wants to earn a bounty to submit and index the world's financial statements, starting with this side of the pond and rolling across the world in each of those 60 other jurisdictions that mandate the use of structured data that can be read, understood, and inconsistencies detected by Pacioli. Right? So that analysis and awareness phase will last for a period of time. How long? I can't tell you. But concurrent with the analysis will be that clock that I mentioned that now gets started, that incentivizes the world's enterprises to maybe hurry up and remediate using Luca to create consistent, accurate, and truthful financial statements before some angry mob decides to try and kill them on the short side, right? So what's more expensive? recovering from a bear raid or spending money on something that remediates what otherwise, in all fairness, is an honest company that wants to do the right thing. It's just that regulatory specifications are lagging substantially.
All right, so we've covered a lot about what's been going on since we last addressed the crowd out there. What's next? What's next for Auditchain, or what will we hope to be talking about the next time we come on the air?
Launch, right? There'll be a hard date. Our hope is that we launch during peak reporting season next year. Just about the time everyone has finished filing all of their 2023 annual reports, or 10Ks, if you will, right? So sometime in February. That's our hope, right? At that point, we'll launch a bounty campaign for everybody to start indexing the world's financial statements, at least on this side of the pond. And that will start the clock for all these enterprises that want to avoid getting attacked by bears, right?
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this episode of On the Brink. Jason, thanks for the update, and we'll see everybody again soon.
Thanks, and for the community, thanks for waiting so long. I really, really, all of us here appreciate your patience. Thanks for hanging in there, and have a great holiday.
That's a good point. This is the Christmas week here. So wherever you are, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you believe in and whoever you believe in, take this time to enjoy it with your family and or friends. So everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you again next time.